Hey guys, Gizzle here, and welcome to my League of Legends 5.3 patch rundown. Today I wanted to talk about the general major and minor changes and how it's gonna affect the meta and the champions themselves, and I just wanted to give my insight and just analyze the changes to see if they are actually still good and well, just basically if the changes are going in the right direction. So first of all, we have Sona, and Sona didn't really change that much. Like, honestly, she really just got some base stat changes, and overall she's probably gonna be more or less the same. She's not in a bad spot, she's actually in a pretty good spot in my opinion, and it's definitely worth being played. And yeah, well, the biggest change is probably the increased base movement speed, because base movement speed is always affecting champions quite a lot, because it's completely existent throughout the game. It's not just when you attack champions or when you use spells, for example. It's just always gonna help you a bit. And yeah, overall it feels like it's a buff, because the health change and the mana change are more or less just cancelling each other out. It's just changing the power spike a little bit. And yeah, in general, Sona is still gonna be the same champion, and in my opinion pretty good, so worth picking up. Next up we have Ahri. Ahri was more of the all-dominant picks last patch. She was actually one of the most dominant picks mid lane, and she kinda, well, she turned into a permaban of some sort, just because she was so safe, dealing so much damage from a range, and she could just go all in and still one-shot people if she hits her spells, and that wasn't really as hard as you actually might think. So she just got a nerf on her Q. Now her Q costs 10 more mana, and her W and ultimate have 100 less acquisition range, and her W on top of that deals 30 less damage at max rank. To be honest, the Q change is really good and in the right direction, because it's fine that she can poke and poke safely, but she shouldn't really do it all game long without really being punished for it. So it's good that she can actually just do it a lot less in lane now, because 10 mana is just gonna stockpile after a while. But I feel like the W change, damage-wise, is not good. The range change on both ultimate and W are fine, just because she actually has to get closer now to deal her damage, and that's a good counterplay kind of some sort, because she can just poke with a Q, or she can go all in to actually deal lots of damage, but she's vulnerable doing so. So that's fine. But I feel like the W the Foxfire damage change is just not really good. Like, honestly, the damage should really be just increased in my opinion on the W, but decreased on the Q. It's fine that you have this idea of going in and dealing more damage but being in a vulnerable position, but is it really worth it? Like, honestly, at this position, if I play Ahri in this moment, I would just think to myself, is it really worth risking my health ulting near the enemy for like this little damage that I get? Is it really worth doing so? And I feel like they should have just reduced the Q damage a little bit and increased it on a W, or left it like that. I don't know, some sort of these would help. It's definitely, well, nerfing her just because it's damage, and reducing damage is always nerfing the champion by quite a bit. But I think it's at the wrong spot. It should have been on the Q in my opinion. But overall, Ahri's still gonna be a top tier mage, and maybe even still bannable, because she's just so safe with her Q. So consider picking her up if you play mid lane. She's really strong right now, and yeah, definitely gonna be strong after that patch. And yeah, viable top tier champion, which is bannable. Moving on to Azir. Azir was one of the strongest mid laners on the same spot as Ahri was. Like, there's some champions that were just really top tier last patch, which included like Azir, Ahri, Nidalee, and Kassadin, which also just got some changes. And yeah, Azir really needed a nerf in my opinion, because he was just so dominant. He could push anyone out of lane, and even the lane bullies that were good against most mages just couldn't do anything against him, just because his damage was so overwhelming, and he was so safe on top of that. If you actually picked cleanse on him and played a little bit safe on him, there was no way you were gonna die, and you could just still throw your damage out from a range. What they did was increase his base attack damage by 3 or 2 and a bit, which is not really large, it just helps in last hitting, I assume. But then they reduced the Q conquering sands damage by 50 at max rank, and reduced the range on the soldier stat range, all on the soldiers basically just. And they reduced the tower bomb damage of your W too. So what that means is you get 50 damage less every time you use your main damaging spell, and soldiers can't attack you twice, for example. Like, what many Azirs did is just throw down your Q, your W, and then just Q them, and normally you, because of the slow, you get like 2 soldiers to stab off, and that's quite a lot of damage. But now you probably just only get your Q and 1 attack off because of that nerf, because range nerfs are always hurting champions that really needed these spells. Like Ari, for example, didn't really have her main damaging spells on W and ultimate for the most part, so that nerf's really not hurting her that much, especially because she's so mobile with that. But if you look at Azir, who really needs these soldiers and has most of his damage coming from his W, then it's really gonna be a lot. 75 damage is really gonna hurt him, and especially, not damage, 75 range is really gonna hurt him. And his 50 damage on his Q is the same thing. Like, 50 damage every time you use that, especially like in lane, for example, is really painful. If you just think about a situation where you just poke your laner down and use it 4 times in a row, that's 200 damage that you don't have anymore. And honestly, that's a lot. So I think that nerf might even be a little bit too much. A good Azir is still going to be successful on it, but maybe this nerf was a tiny bit too much. I can't tell. I would be careful. Maybe I'm just not quite experienced enough on him yet, but I feel like Azir is not necessarily in a really bad spot, but maybe needs a little touch up to actually be really good again. So I don't think he's really ban worthy anymore. Especially the something that's interesting too is like especially the tower damage, because last patch you could just poke your enemy lane out of lane and just destroy the tower in one go. Good thing they changed that. So yeah, like I said, probably not ban worthy anymore. But if you're good at him, just keep playing him. Diana. Diana was always one of these champions that wasn't top tier for the most part. She had a time where she was top tier and then she was useless, and then she got buffed back up a bit, but never really touched again. She got some small quality of life changes here and there, and she gets another one this patch, just playing the passive stacks she has and making her W cascade orbs rotate double the speed. But honestly, is that really gonna help her? I feel like she needs a little more. She needs a little base stat increasement, or maybe even just a little base damage on her Q or W, because she doesn't really do all that much. Honestly, Diana is one of these all-in champions, and if they can't all-in effectively, then why pick them? Diana is the same theme as Leona, for example. They are counterparts. They're like Sun and Moon, Sun and Moon basically, and both have the same playstyle. You go all in and wreck stuff, or you don't and die. And Diana always has this thing of don't and die most of the time. Leona is still useful even when behind because she's designed to, but if she actually gets caught at the wrong spot, or if she goes too deep, then she's just dead because she can't get out. And that's the same with Diana. But she just really needs a little bit, in my opinion. She's not bad by any means. She's pickable, she's viable, but she's not top tier, I think. So a little bit more on her. Pickable, but needs a bit. Moving on to Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks is a champion that I always hated. I just hate the design overall, and it's dumb that you can just herp-a-derp, walk in lane, press Q, kill. That's how it is. That's what you do. Or you just stand around, press R, and then you get the kill. I don't like this kid, and obviously it's not that easy most of the time as I make it look like. But honestly, this kid is just—it's hard to be bad at Fiddlesticks. Let's put it like that. Like, the worst that can happen is that you use your spells in the wrong rotation. You just drain first and then you Q them or something like that. So I think Fiddlesticks was never really amazingly strong, but he was definitely a pain to deal with when you're playing against a good Fiddlesticks. And I like every nerf on him, even if he doesn't really need it. Maybe he needs just something else. It's just his Q that really bugs me. And well, this 50 reduction on the tether range is really not gonna do quite a lot. Like 50 range, it's always like range. Obviously, is always a factor that really can make or break a champion. But on Fiddlesticks, I don't know if that's really gonna do a lot. Just probably still good. So you can still pick him or even ban him if you want to, because especially in solo queue, he's a pain to deal with. Next up, Nah. I actually played Nah already, and I feel like this change is quite huge. Honestly, the tire debuff duration is increased to 15 seconds from 13, and the Mega Gnar duration is reduced from 19 to 15. And 4 seconds less on Mega Gnar is actually quite a lot. They actually intended it to set to be 15 seconds, but it was 19. And honestly, this is huge. Like, Mega Gnar was always just, if you can jump onto one, you always used it to just zone the enemies, because if they get close to them, they just get stunned for 3 seconds and take huge amounts of damage. But you cannot do that anymore, at least not for the long amount of time, and you have lots of more time to actually engage on him now. I mean, 2 seconds doesn't seem like much, but in a team fight, or if you're preparing a team fight, this is actually a lot. And especially 4 seconds less on his Mega Form is definitely noticeable in both laning and team fighting. So I feel like this nerf was on the wrong spot. This tire debuff duration is fine. He has more downtime with Mega Gnar, that's definitely a fine change. But actually having 15 seconds instead of 19, it's a little much. I think it should be like the middle ground of both, like 17 seconds, but something else. Something that really needs to be changed on Gnar is his mini form, and that is his W. His W deals magic damage, max health, percentage, every third attack. Why? All of his kit is designed to deal physical damage, except for that ability, and I don't understand that. He should just be designed to just actually offer some counterplay. Build armor and you're done with it. Like, Gnar cannot deal as much damage anymore if you have armor. But if you're actually in mini form and you're like playing Maokai building Frozen Heart, he can still just attack you 3 times in a row and deal a quarter of your health with this attack just because it deals magic damage. Like, why? That doesn't make sense. Give him some counterplay, give him some sense, just change it to physical damage, maybe even buff it a bit because you can actually itemize against that. But not this. Like, honestly, this is just something that shouldn't really change all that much. I feel like 17 seconds here will be better instead of 15. That feels a little bit overshot. And he's still going to be good, don't get me wrong, but he's probably not going to be amazing anymore. Maybe with Narvan, he's still going to be good, but on his own, meh. Probably better picks, like Lysandra, for example, who's still not patched, touched this patch, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, moving on, Gragas. Gragas is the same, well, basically tier like Diana. He still has the same problems. Like, his ultimate is still a little too unreliable and still make or break. Like, you can just throw it out and push their AD carry into you and just kill them in one shot, or you can just push them further away and then the teamfight is over, basically. So, honestly, I think it's fine that they buff his Q just because the slow is going to help to set up ganks or just chase people down, but I think he needs a little more than that. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like something. I don't know what exactly, just because I didn't play him all that much, but a little something similar to Diana is that he needs. Just a little buff. And that's fine. He's viable, just not top tier. Same with Diana. Kassadin. Kassadin is one of these champions that I just absolutely hate, similar to Fiddlesticks. But with Fiddlesticks, he's at least not completely broken. Kassadin is. He's still the same annoying champion that just spams Q, gets you low, and then just Rift walks in and kills you, and then Rift walks out because jungler can't even help you at that point. And if he doesn't, he can just roam and do the same thing to other champions. And that's annoying. Like, 10 damage on his Q that he got taken off this time is really not changing anything. What they need to do on his kit ultimately is just reduce the Q damage to something like 130 damage or something, and give him that damage on his W. So he actually needs to Rift Walk onto you, deal the damage, then wait like 3-4 seconds or whatever the cooldown is on early levels, and then Rift Walk out again, because then he's actually in danger zone and then he can actually get attacked. He shouldn't be able to just Q you the entire laning phase and then just Rift Walk in and kill you. That's stupid. Just giving something, like, give him a time where he's actually vulnerable. Right now he isn't. He just spams that spell and that's it. All you can do is push him in and poke him if you're lucky, but that's about it. And that's really annoying. Like, that's what they need to change, and that's not going to change anything. 10 damage is a bit, but it's definitely not going to really affect him all that much. He's still going to be a pain to deal with, and I feel like he's still top tier or even bannable. Like, I still ban him in my solo queue games, so I wouldn't say that this changes all that much, like, if at all. So I'd recommend still banning Kassadin. Katarina. All they change is really change the attack frame. So she just last hits better, for example. But I feel like Katarina Katarina is still one of these champions. It's just, I don't know, the passive is just weird. Honestly, it's good that she has a passive because it makes her unique, but they need to change something that just makes her less stupid in teamfights, where she just gets one kill and then completely melts down every other champion. I feel like she's a little too strong, actually, in my opinion, especially in solo queue. And what I'd change is just give Shumpo a bit more damage, introduce it somewhere else, just because Shumpo is the mobility ability. But then you actually needed to decide, do I jump in to deal more damage but put myself in a danger zone, or do I use it for mobility to jump to a ward or something to pop my QW and then run away again, or do I just Shumpo away and lose damage? Like, that's what I need to do, in my opinion. And yeah, at this point I'd even sometimes ban Katarina, but she's definitely a good champion, especially in solo queue, so keep an eye on her. She can easily melt your team, and I feel like something else should come to actually reduce the damage a bit. Cannon. Cannon was one of these champions that always felt like was one of the better picks, actually, but never really played. There was a time when he's actually played quite a lot, especially in Korea, but he never really found anything here. He just got like a small AD base damage nerf a while ago. Oh, it's actually like a year or two ago now. And that's it. That's all they changed, and then it was never played again. But I feel like he's still the same champion. You're just ult into the enemy team and they just all get stunned and then die. Like, Cannon is still good. And this change is actually quite useful. What you couldn't do earlier is when you just ulted and got your 3 stacks off with your ultimate, you couldn't use your W. Because obviously he doesn't have stun stacks on them anymore, so what are you gonna do? Your W is useless. You basically lose one spell if you don't hit your Q, E, or your passive W, and you cannot do that in teamfight on more than one target at least. So now you can actually use it whenever they're just in your ultimate, and that's amazing. You just use your spell immediately and have your W, your passive stacked onto them for like another rotation of your W. So this change is actually quite helpful. To make up for that, Cannon now has the downside of being worse against single targets, because now the ultimate only hits every half a second, down from every quarter of a second. So that's good, in my opinion, because it gives him a little less safety in lane, for example. And yeah, he's definitely a strong pick, in my opinion. You already saw some playing competitive play, so keep an eye on him. I definitely recommend picking him up, actually, top lane, so try to play around him a little bit. I feel like he's good, definitely. Nidalee. Nidalee is actually, well, to be honest, she was just bugged. I don't know if she's actually OP, but she was broken last patch, and that's because she was bugged. And that's actually what they said here. I fixed the bug where Nidalee's cooldowns were not properly set when switching from human to cougar form. And what it did was, you just changed your cougar form to human form and then back, and you had your cooldowns up again on every single spell. What was intended is that if you hit your hunt thingy, like your spear or your trap, then your transformation spell gets reset, so you can just immediately change to that, whatever it is. Like, if you just hit a spear, you can just transform into a cougar, and that's fine. But it shouldn't reset every fucking spell, and that's what it did. And it's good that they actually reverted that. I don't know, was it intended? Apparently not, because it was a bug. But that's what made her broken. She's still a little bit dumb, just because you can spam spears in a human form and just half-life someone with that. And it's still kind of stupid that it's in the game, because now she can actually just jump in and execute you on top of that. But she's not broken anymore. She's still really strong and maybe even ban-worthy, but probably not really on the spot of actually being overly impressively strong. Definitely good though, and worth picking up both in the jungle and in lane if you want to. Twisted Fate. I don't think Twisted Fate is actually bad. He's actually one of the better picks in my opinion. It's similar to Cannon, but he just doesn't really fit the meta right now. He's gonna come back. I guarantee you that Twisted Fate is gonna come back sometime, just because his stun and his reliability on that, and just his poke and stuff like that, and his ultimate especially, are just so good. Like, Twisted Fate was never a bad champion, and he still isn't. If you're good at him, play him. He's really strong. He just doesn't really fit the meta right now, in my opinion. And, well, this change doesn't do much. Like, stack deck, yeah, you can stack it in towers now. Big rule, but what does it help you? It doesn't, because if you actually add the tower, you probably get ganked and you die anyway, so, I don't think that's gonna do a lot. And that Destiny thing is just, well, clarity. Obviously nice, but not doing anything. But he doesn't really need much. Like, maybe a slight touch up on base health or something, but that's about it, and Twisted Fate is really fine. He just needs the correct meta to work. So if you're good at him, play him. Varus. I always like these utility AD carries like Ashe and Varus, to be honest. Varus is actually not bad, but what does it help you if you can just snare someone when you can just one-shot them? If you have Graves and you just Q ult them their faces and they just die, or if you have a 10 billion damage Jinx ult that just blows people up in 1 second, or like you just stand in their faces, press your ultimate and they just die. Why would you snare them if you can just kill them? If they're killed, they're CC'd anyway. Why not? Why would you pick Varus over that? Honestly, I don't know if it's because these other AD carries are too strong, or if Varus just doesn't deal enough damage, similar to Ashe. But I don't think this is gonna change too much. It's definitely helpful because width is always good and definitely noticeable compared to the Mundo Cleaver nerf, for example, which made him quite a lot less reliable. This is actually good because the reliability is always amazing. But I don't know if that's gonna be huge. He's definitely viable, like he was before, but I don't know if he's actually like top tier. Probably not, but viable. If you like him, pick him up. Zyra. This change is really not all that interesting. It's just Thorn Spitters and Vine Lashes now display their range. It's just a clarity change, so why not? And yeah, that's about it at Champions. For items we have Farsight Orb. Farsight Orb now drops a visible ward for 60 seconds at the target location, and that's interesting. You cannot teleport to it, but it's still something, and it can prevent some things, to be honest. If you have... Farsight Orb was normally only bought on 80 carries, and that's fine, and it still probably won't change all that much, but if you have your 80 carrier bot lane, for example, and you just Farsight Orb this bush that's under the Crux, another Crux buff, on a buff, just jungle camp, then Rengar cannot gank from the lane anymore, because you will just get spotted, and you don't have to walk around and place a ward manually there, and maybe even get spotted doing so. You can just press that button there, just drop a ward there, and they don't really notice it sometimes. So I feel like this is actually gonna be helpful in some situations. Obviously, if you put them down where the enemy is, this ward is just gonna get destroyed since it only has 1 hit point. But if you put it down correctly, and just pass it over the correct position, that is actually quite helpful. It's only 60 seconds, but who knows? Little things can actually change the game sometimes. The greater stealth totem now stacks up to 2 charges. Doesn't really do that much. Thinking about it, it's like half a sightstone. You just go with that change, or when I first look at it, I was like, oh yeah, actually, second sightstone. It's actually good. I can just buy it on any champion, but is it really that helpful? Like, honestly, what does it help you when you actually have vision if the enemy has the same amount of vision? If you cannot deny the enemy vision, then is it really that helpful? Like, you already have a sightstone in your supporter and sometimes even on your jungler. Why do you need more? I mean, I could see work on, like, for example, the top laner or maybe even the jungler to replace the sightstone, but I don't know. I feel like it's just not worth it. You can just buy the pink upgrade instead and just get a free pink ward every single time. Or you could just buy the Oracle lens, obviously, to just deny vision. Like, again, you need to deny vision too. You can't just place a billion wards. You have a limit anyway. But a billion wards are not gonna help you when they also see you. So, that's about capitalizing with the amount of denial and ward placement that you have. So, I don't know if it's that worth. It's definitely... No, I could see some play, but I don't know if this item is really going to be, or this upgrade is really going to be that useful. Seems good on paper, but meh. Spectral Scowl now gives 50% more base health regen, and that's good because some mages were actually really dominant. Like for example, Rumble, Lissandra, sometimes Maokai. These champions were just really hard to deal with. And yeah, this is good. I like it, and doesn't really change all that much. And it's actually quite a nerf to Fizz too, because I really hate playing against Fizz top lane. Oh, I actually hate playing against Fizz anyway. But okay, this change is good. I like it. And yeah, that's about it. Nothing really, just some bug fixes or something about Ignite, so you can can't teleport back or recall anyway when backing when you ignite it. And yeah, that's it. That was patch 5.3, and that was my rundown and my analysis of it. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, folks, and until the next patch.